Mark had always thought he was living the dream. A steady job as a marketing director, a beautiful wife named Emily, and a lovely home in the suburbs. They had it all. A stable routine with weekends spent together, dinners with friends, and the promise of a future full of possibilities. Emily, a loving and supportive wife, was the center of Mark's world. Their marriage, for the most part, seemed flawless. They had worked hard for their life, and everything felt effortless, like a well-rehearsed performance. Their love appeared genuine, built on trust, comfort, and mutual respect. It was a life that many would envy, one that Mark believed would last forever. But little did he know, cracks were beginning to form beneath the surface. It started off small, Emily coming home later than usual, claiming she was caught up at work or out with friends. At first, Mark didn't think much of it. After all, they both had busy lives. But the excuses started to feel rehearsed, and Mark couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. He began noticing things. Emily's perfume lingering on her clothes, the faint scent of unfamiliar cologne in the air, the way she seemed distracted when he spoke to her. She'd often retreat to the shower immediately after arriving home, as if to cleanse herself. Mark's mind raced with possibilities, each one darker than the last. He tried to brush it off, but the inconsistencies were growing harder to ignore. Was it just stress, or was there something more? The small signs of change became more frequent. Emily's late nights turned into regular occurrences. She was more distant, less affectionate, and the once intimate conversations they shared seemed forced. Mark tried to reason with himself. Maybe she was overwhelmed by work or dealing with something personal, but deep down, he knew something was off. The way she would avoid eye contact or change the subject when he asked about her day, everything felt off. He began to feel like a stranger in his own home. The rational side of him urged caution, to not jump to conclusions, but the growing pit in his stomach told him otherwise. His mind whirred with suspicions, but he still couldn't bring himself to confront her. He wasn't sure if he could handle the truth. One evening, Mark's worst fears were confirmed. Unable to ignore the gnawing doubts anymore, he decided to follow Emily discreetly. He told himself it was just for peace of mind. As he trailed behind her through the city streets, his heart raced. Emily made her way to a cozy upscale restaurant. Mark's breath caught in his throat when he saw her sitting across from a man, someone he didn't recognize. They shared intimate glances and laughter, her hand resting on his. The man touched her arm in a way Mark hadn't done in years. It felt like a punch to the gut. Mark's mind spun in disbelief. All this time, the woman he trusted, the woman he thought he knew, had been betraying him. His heart shattered into pieces, and for the first time, he realized there was no going back. The damage was done. That night, Mark waited until Emily came home. The weight of the moment hung in the air, heavy with betrayal. When she walked through the door, Mark didn't hesitate. He demanded answers. Emily froze. Her eyes darted around the room, her lips parting in a vain attempt to deny everything. "What are you talking about?" she asked, but her voice lacked conviction. Mark stared at her, showing no emotion as he revealed everything. Her face flushed, and for the first time in their marriage she looked guilty. Emily's smirk only made things worse. She taunted him, as though she already knew he had uncovered the truth. "You think this will hurt me?" she mocked, the words laced with a cruel arrogance. Mark's heart broke even further, but he refused to show weakness. He promised her that she would regret every choice she made, even if it meant destroying the life they'd built together. Mark wasn't ready to walk away. A simple divorce wouldn't be enough. Emily needed to suffer for the way she had destroyed everything. He decided to make her pay, and not just with his words. Mark began formulating a plan of calculated revenge. He wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of an easy escape. His first step was to gather undeniable proof of her affair, proof that no amount of denial or lies could erase. He installed hidden cameras around their home and began discreetly tracking her every move. The more he watched, the clearer it became. Emily was completely reckless now, confident that she was untouchable. Mark would make sure she wouldn't get away with it. Mark's investigation was meticulous. He pored over the evidence he gathered: texts, phone calls, even voice recordings of Emily laughing with her lover. Each piece of evidence was a small victory, and with each discovery, Mark's resolve hardened. Emily's behavior became more erratic, more obvious. She no longer bothered with the little details that had once shielded her affair. She was careless, thinking she could continue her double life without consequence. Mark, however, wasn't about to let her get away with it. He watched her every move, collecting proof, ensuring that when the time came, Emily would have no escape from the truth. The moment Mark had been waiting for arrived. With irrefutable evidence in hand, he confronted Emily. Her initial shock quickly turned to defensiveness as she saw the evidence he had gathered. There was no denying it anymore. The texts, the photos, the recordings, all laid out in front of her. Emily's face drained of color, and for once Mark saw her crumble. She tried to defend herself, but the words were empty. She was cornered, trapped by her own lies. Mark remained calm, his voice steady as he told her that she would regret this for the rest of her life. He had already won, and the punishment he had in mind was far worse than any divorce could offer. Mark wasn't interested in immediate satisfaction. His revenge would take time. He would make sure of it. He had a plan, and it was far more intricate than Emily could ever imagine. He would make her realize the depth of her betrayal, make her feel every ounce of pain she had caused. As he prepared to execute his next move, Mark felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. Justice, he knew, was not swift. It was calculated, and soon Emily would pay the price. The life they once shared was a distant memory, and Mark's path forward would ensure that no one would ever forget the cost of crossing him.